welcome to the Monday, August 10, 2020, 5 p.m. regular closed session meeting of the City Council. The meeting will now come to order. Pursuant to Executive Order N2920, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden City Council will participate in today's meeting telephonically. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. City Clerk, will you please call roll of the City Council?
Yes, Mayor. Council members Aceituno,
Present.
Barcena, Councilmember Barcena, Mayor Pro Tem Flores,
I'm sorry, can you hear me? This is Councilmember Barcena.
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Flores,
Present.
and Mayor Cortez.
Present. And just for clarification, Councilmember Barcena, you're present, correct?
Are you able to hear me right now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. So you're present? I know it's a no question, but Marco?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm
It's
having trouble with my connection. Thanks.
Okay, City Clerk took roll call, so if you can just say that you're present, please.
Councilmember Barcena,
Present.
thank you.
There we go. Thank you. City Clerk, do we have public participation for closed session?
There are no public speakers, Mayor.
Thank you. So at this point, if there's no objection by the City Council, I will close public participation. And now we're moving on to closed session items. City Attorney?
Hi, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council, staff. At this time, the City Council will recess into closed session to discuss those items posted on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. We will now recess for closed session. The City Council will reconvene to open session at 6 p.m. That's not protection.
Hello, this is Councilmember Marco Barcena. Just testing, wanted to make sure that you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Thank you, Mike.
How's it going, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I know it's been going all right. I've been mostly tuning into the meetings from home. But how are you doing, man? How's the family?
We've had some challenges. My mom's been sick. My dad's been real sick. He has cancer. So, other than that, it's just us trying to juggle, having the kids, be here at home at school and, you know, juggling all the stuff and the responsibilities with the chamber. So it's been quite interesting.
Yeah, man, tell me about it. I have some friends that got sick from the virus recently, so it's been a very sobering experience to have people that you actually know be exposed to the virus and start to be affected by it. And unfortunately, I also saw the news about the mayor of Long Beach, who had a second tragedy. I believe his stepfather now passed away, if I'm correct. I just read it like a second ago.
His mom passed
Huh?
away about 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah. So I think this is another one here. Yeah, I just literally saw it before coming onto the meeting. I saw it on my feed. I hope it wasn't fake news. Well, actually, I do hope it was fake news.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just bad news all around.
Yeah, this virus is really it's hurting a lot of people. I know a lot of our business owners have been, we're very worried. One of the things that's been kind of coming up to my attention is, I guess, a moratorium for evictions for business owners. I think there's something in the language where they have to pay everything back within 3 months. Is there a reason why it can't be extended a little bit longer?
Gentlemen, just FYI, we're already live streaming,
Okay. Well,
just to let you know.
Mike, can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry about that, but I'm getting a call and I need to figure out how to answer it, and I didn't mean to cut you off or anything. I apologize.
Oh, don't worry about it. We can talk later.
Councilmember Barcena, we're just letting you know that we are already live streaming.
Yes, thank you.
City Council y te me van a escuchar todos. They're going to be recording. No. No, I need this. Let me. Mayra.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, August 10, 2020, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Gardens Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order. Pursuant to Executive Order N2920, please be advised that members of the Bell Gardens Successor Agency will participate in today's meeting telephonically. Agency members and staff are participating from remote locations. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted at the agenda. Someone needs to mute. If any agency member should have a conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off your video and muting yourself. You may still keep listening to the meeting. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Hylas. Thank you. Agency Secretary, will you please call roll of the successor agency?
Yes, Madam Chair. Agency members Acetuno,
Present.
Agency member Acetuno,
Present.
Barcena,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Flores, and Mayor Cortez.
Present. City Clerk, moving on to public participation. We're moving to the first item of the agenda. Actually, do we have any public participation for this? No. Okay, no public participation, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. And now moving on to consent calendar. Does any member of the agency wish to pull any item for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and motion to approve the consent calendar for the successor agency. May I have a second?
I'll second. Acetuno.
Second by Councilmember Aceituno, and I'll take it to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno. Councilmember Aceituno, we're taking it to a roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, that's right. She was in the roll call. Okay, and yes for myself as well. So this vote carries 3-0.
Mayor, I got a text from Mayor Pro Tem that she's having difficulty logging on.
Got it. We'll take a 2-minute recess while we help Mayor Pro Tem log on.
Okay, I'm here now.
Okay, perfect. So let it reflect on the record, 6:07, we officially have Mayor Pro Tem on the line. But she was having technical difficulties. Okay, we're moving on to public participation of non-agenda items of the successor agency. City Clerk, do
Madam
we have
Mayor?
any? Yes.
Madam, I don't believe that we completed our vote. I think there was a first and a second, then I think we took a recess.
We did the roll call, but I'll go ahead and do the roll call second.
Okay.
So
Oh,
Mayor
okay,
Pro Tem, we're doing the consent calendar for the successor agency.
Okay,
I already have a yes from Councilmember Aceituno, Councilmember Barcena, and a yes for myself. So Mayor Pro Tem?
yes.
Okay. So that completes our consent calendar. Moving on to public participation on non-agenda items.
We have no speakers, Mayor.
Thank you so much. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close public participation. Is there any agency members who wish to make a comment on the successor agency? Hearing none, if there's no objection by the successor agency, I will adjourn the successor agency meeting and call to order the city council meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, August 10, 2020, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden City Council. Who do we need to meet? Everybody? Okay. The meeting will now come to order. Pursuant to Executive Order N2920, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden City Council will participate in today's meeting telephonically. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any agency members should have a conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still keep listening to the meeting. City Clerk, will you please call roll of the City Council?
Yes, Mayor. Council members Aceituno,
Present.
Barcena,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Flores,
Present.
and Mayor Cortez.
Present. City Attorney, will you please give the closed session report?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The record should reflect that the City Council recessed into closed session to discuss the 3 items posted on tonight's agenda. With respect to the first item, the City Council received a briefing from outside special counsel. Direction was given, but no final action was taken. With respect to the last 2 items, the City Council received a briefing from outside special counsel Gary Basio. Direction was given, but no final action was taken on either of those 2 items. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. At this point, we're moving on to public participation. City Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do, Mayor. The first one is to be called by phone, Jennifer Rodriguez. I'll go ahead and place that call.
has been forwarded to an automatic voice message.
And then we have an email to be read.
Thank you, City Attorney. At this point, moving on to the comment by Ms. Felicia. Sorry. Okay. My name is Cristina Paulo, Bell Gardens resident, and my comment is on the agenda item related to the development impact fees. 50,000 is a big allocation to conduct a study. Is the outsourcing of this task absolutely necessary, and is it really unfeasible for city staff to take on this task? To review fees over a period of time, forecast an increase, decrease, compare them to neighboring or comparable cities, and come up with something they can present to council. It seems like the city has been outsourcing a lot of tasks and delegating a big chunk of money towards studies that haven't been really effective in finding reasonable solutions. It is important that the city drafts a statement of work and that these vendors deliver the scope of work outline. Just my 2 cents. Thank you for your time. And that concludes our public comment. Moving on to our city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. I'd just like to make a couple of announcements here just on some of the activity that staff have been working on related to grants and community benefit programs. Some of these have been talked about individually, but just cumulatively, the city received about a $3.5 million Cal Home grant recently that will go towards rehab of homes, some first-time home buyer help. Also, we're awaiting news about a grant that we're very hopeful on regarding the aquatic center. Hopefully by the next council meeting, we will know whether we've achieved that grant or not. Also, you'll see later on at this meeting, there's a new grant that we're going to be seeking as well. So in addition to the COVID CDBG monies, the 600-some thousand plus the 400,000 that we're going to be discussing, the staff has really been putting a lot of effort into bringing in what has already been and what will continue to be multi-millions of dollars non-general fund revenue into the city that's really direct community benefit funding. And so I just wanted to thank the staff, community development department, police department, recreation community services, finance department, public works department for all the effort that's being put into seeking out this funding and being successful in receiving it thus far. And we expect to continue to be successful going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager, for that report. Moving on to consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council wish to pull any item for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Flores, and then we'll take it to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well, so that motion carries 4-0. City Manager, moving on to the first discussion item. Actually, City Manager, before we begin discussion items.
Yes, Mayor Cortez. I'd like to request an additional item be added to the agenda in order for the council to allow showing that the item was received after the agenda was published, that the item is time sensitive. Both of these criteria have been met since following the posting of the August 10th, 2020 agenda. The city was made aware that the California Department of Housing and Community Development requires that the city submit an approved resolution along with a grant application no later than this week. So basically what staff is seeking is approval to submit another grant for additional funding, and we have learned through the California Department of Housing and Community Development that a resolution is required to go along with that application. For this item to be allowed on the agenda, we have to show that it was received after and that it was time sensitive. And we believe it meets both of those criteria.
And if I-
also, oh, go
And
ahead.
if I may, yeah, sorry, Mayor, council members, if I may add, not only did it come to the attention of staff after the agenda was posted, the other criteria which it satisfies, which I think the city manager alluded to, is that there is a need to take immediate action on this item tonight, which is why it's there before you as a walk-on item.
And just as a final statement for this item to be allowed on the agenda, it must be approved by a vote of at least 2/3 of the council members, or in the case of this specific council, 3 of the 4 council members. So there would need to be a vote to allow this item to come on, and then it would become item number 10 on the agenda.
Thank you, Mike. So I'm going to go ahead and motion to add this item to the agenda. And again, just to clarify, the current vote is just to add that item as the last discussion item for tonight's meeting, and then we'll be presented with all the details. And then at that point, we'll take whatever action is needed. This is just to add it to the end of our agenda. So I'll move to add item number 10.
I'll second.
Councilor Barcino, was that you?
Thank you. That's right. That's Marco Barcena.
Councilor Barcina second. So I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno.
Yes.
Councilmember Barcina.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
And yes for myself as well. So the motion carries to add the item to the end of our discussion tonight. Thank you. So with that said, City Manager, discussion item number 6.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. So this item is a presentation by our Community Development Director regarding development impact fees. So development impact fees are basically a way for a city to charge a fee to a developer for the infrastructure, public safety, recreation, community services, other needs of the city that would be negatively impacted by this additional development. And so our Community Development Director, just with his experience looking at the city's current lack of a development impact fee, and also looking at some of the requirements that the state is putting forth regarding additional housing development that would be potentially required in the city, I believe it is prudent to come to the council, talk about development impact fees, and to make a recommendation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Community Development Director Gus Romo.
Yes, good evening, council, mayor, and council members. The reason we're bringing this up to you is I had understood that the city had looked at development impact fees in the past, but the thought back then had been that they did not want to be unfriendly to business. However, I believe that the council needs to be re-looking at this because development impact fees do not actually detract business. They actually attract more development because of the fact that the community is able to maintain their infrastructure through new development opportunities. Right now, without the developers paying into these, this really falls on the residents of the city of Bell Gardens. At the end of the day, developers are used to these development impact fees. They budget for them. And when the city does not have them, what they do is they use those monies that they've budgeted for other parts of the project. So what I'd like to let you know is that development impact fees have been around since 1987. You know, as the presentation, I'm not sure if the presentation is up right now. If not, if I could have Jane put it up for you.
Yes, give us 1 second, guys, while we get the presentation on.
Okay. The bill that brought the development impact fee, what's called the Mitigation Fee Act of California, is Assembly Bill 1600. And again, the purpose of this was to allow local government agencies a tool to be able to mitigate the long-term impacts of development. You know, and again, without these development impact fees, the costs are borne by the residents of the city. And a lot of times what cities do without development impact fees is they use a development agreement to be able to mitigate that. But that can become problematic over the long term because sometimes it is looked at as being subjective to that particular development. So we'll go on to the next slide. and then the one that follows that. So again, as our city manager had indicated, development impact fee is a one-time fee to fund public facilities, and it's based on infrastructure that is needed, based on the impacts that have been caused by that new development. It is imposed at the building permit stage. It can be imposed either before the construction starts or before the certificate of occupancy is issued. And it is not a tax or a special assessment. It is, as its name identifies, it's an impact fee. And it's not subject to Proposition 218 approval requirements. And as you know, Prop 218 has to do with voter rights to approve new taxes. And it can include one or multiple fees. And a lot of you know them as park fees, police, fire fees, fees for single family or multifamily development. We can go on to the next slide. So what it does, it gives you an additional tool to be able to build your infrastructure. A lot of times, the Public Works Department and engineering, they go after restricted funds to be able to pay for this infrastructure. And the impact fees give you that additional source of revenue to close that gap when funding is missing. So again, without development impact fees, the cost is borne by the residents unless there's state or federal restricted funds or grants available. And overall, impact fees are very common in California, and they can be seen in the success of a lot of agencies. And a lot of times, you can see the city that has the impact fees versus the one that doesn't, and the way their infrastructure has been maintained. We can go on to the next slide. This is an example, just putting out there some of these cities that have development impact fees taken into account. For instance, the city of Bellflower. What you see here is park facility fees. They charge $24,000 per single family unit, $18,000 per multifamily unit. And then there's also a public facilities fee, which is based on a square foot of commercial, industrial, and single family and multifamily. And they also have what's called a public art fee. And that goes towards improving public art throughout the neighborhood. A lot of times it could be in the form of an in lieu fee, or it could be the actual art that's being proposed by the developer, whether it's a statue or some sort of mural in the city. City of Linwood, as you can see, has 5 different types of impact fees. Southgate, they only have one impact fee. It's the art in public places. Cerritos as well. So again, when you do the study, you can identify, we want to take a look at all of these different type of impacts. And then the consultant will come back with those, and you can decide to take on one fee, 2 fees, or a multitude of fees. And again, here's more cities: San Gabriel, West Covina, Whittier, different impact fees that they have. 138 public agencies we've been tracking to see the ones that do have impact fees. Now here you see the City of Commerce is crossed out. If you can go on to the next slide. One more after that. I'm sorry, one more. Okay, so this is the one I was alluding to. I'm on a different page over here. The City of Commerce, they did a study, but at the end of the day, they decided not to adopt their fees. This was back in 2016. Why they didn't go forward with it, we're not sure at this point. But again, once a city does their fees and they decide, at that point to adopt them, they do become permanent unless revised. So you can go on to the next slide. Again, this is just the number of agencies throughout California that have these impact fees. And the next slide. So we looked at the surrounding municipalities, and here, City of Bell does not have any. Bellflower, Cerritos, yes. Cudahy, Commerce, no. Downey, Huntington Park, yes. But again, only limited fees. Linwood, yes. Montebello, yes. Maywood, no. Norwalk, yes. So you can go down the list of all these municipalities that have these impact fees. And we can come back and again, do a study to see what would be beneficial for the City of Bell Gardens. We can go on to the next slide. So this gives you development impact fee estimate. In this case, it's the city of Bellflower. Between 2015 and 2020, they did a total of $948,000. And again, this will give you just an example of potential revenue that could be out there that could service that specific impact fee. Whether, again, it's for storm drain, whether it's for police services, whether it's for community development, a general plan, all of that can be taken into account once the development impact fee study is done. Go on to the next slide. So in conclusion, with a number of projects that the city is anticipating, especially denser residential projects that are coming up, staff really believes that it's in the city's best interest to conduct at least the development impact fee study and determine the type and amount of these fees that should be considered. You know, the city's infrastructure is going to continue to deteriorate, and this is especially important with the loss of revenue that we've had with this pandemic. So again, the staff urges you to give us direction to have a consultant prepare a development impact fee study. The study itself is going to be in the neighborhood of about $50,000. So we've gone out there and we've looked at these studies, and that's roughly what they're coming out to. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions.
Gus, this is Michael Kelly. Can you explain to the council, I think we had a public comment that asked the question, I think it was a good question, regarding why this isn't a study that staff would just put together as opposed to hiring a consultant out. Can you touch on some of the reasons for that?
Absolutely. Development impact fee study is a very detailed and it has a certain expertise to it that the consultants that put these together, that is what they do. They specialize in it. So they know all about financing infrastructure and what's needed. So what they'll do is they'll go out there and they'll interview staff from each department and identify what exactly is lacking. You know, what infrastructure is deteriorating and what condition everything is in. So again, it's a very specific type of study. Staff does, even though we have the general understanding of it, we do not have the expertise to conduct a full study.
So can you also talk about, I think just the fact that third party would be independent as opposed to staff. I think there's generally a perception that there would be some value, you know, and that an independent third party is going to be more maybe objective and less influenced potentially by staff doing it themselves. I'm not saying that's the case exactly with your department, but that question would come up. So can you touch on any value there as well?
No, you're absolutely right, Mike. Some might say that staff could be a little biased because, you know, we'd like to see an impact fee for everything around here. But the consultant is going to look at it subjectively. I should say they're going to look at the fact, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong, I think the word is objectively. They're going to go ahead and identify exactly what the city needs based on their existing infrastructure. They don't have any skin in the game, so at the end of the day, they are going to be very impartial.
And Gus, just to clarify a couple things, just in full disclosure, this was not included in the current general fund budget. If the council were to approve this, we would put out an RFP, get the results back, go through the proposals, come back to council with an item that would recommend a consultant and also ask for appropriations at that time. Is that correct?
That's correct. And for staff, it really was a matter of time is of the essence because of the projects that we saw coming in. And of course, the pandemic has slowed things down a bit. But we feel that once things start moving up again, all of a sudden we're going to get hit with all these projects. And some of them look to be pretty large projects. So we don't want to miss out on the ability to collect those fees from these larger projects.
Okay, if council has any questions, Mike, for myself, I just want you to, if you can go over or our director, what would be the benefits of those monies that would come in? Like, let's say we do pass these development fees, what can we use those monies for? What would that look like for our budget?
Yes, would you go into some detail on that, please?
Sure. For instance, the park fees, they were identified through what's called the Quimby Act. And if anything, all cities should have at minimum park fees. And those fees will go towards improving what you have in terms of parks and expanding on them. There are some cities in the area that might be more park poor that might need those fees a lot more. So again, you also have fees such as the general plan impact fee, which allows the city to update its general plan. And oftentimes, the reason cities don't do this is because they don't have the funds to be able to do that. And as you know, updating the general plan could be pretty expensive. And so these fees, as collected, they would be put into account and only used for that specific purpose. You also have public or art in public places, as we were talking about before. Cities that want to promote art in public places, typically they have to do it with their own general fund monies. In this case, we have developers paying for it. So when a project comes in, they're putting some of that money towards that. They can actually give you the art and put it where you'd like it, or they can put an in lieu fee towards it. And then later on, when you have a good amount of money, you can decide where to put that art. You also have impacts for single family and multifamily development that'll go towards more production. So all in all, it's a matter of looking to see what impact fees you want to go for and look at. Maybe there's some that you don't need and you're doing well with, but the study will tell us that.
So just to be clear for the council, so the study would come back and show, here's where there are needs, here's where potentially a recommendation for the fees, and then the council decides whether they agree with those needs, whether they would want a developer to pay for those fees or not. That would all be determined at the time, if there were a study done, at the time it comes back to council for approval to adopt the actual fees. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And at the time too, they'll recommend the rate that these fees should be at. They want to make sure that they're at a rate that is comparable to other areas and is going to be competitive.
Questions, comments from the council?
Yes, Gus, thank you so much for this presentation. I think that it's been due for some time. I think at the beginning of our term when, we first brought Mike on board, this was one of the discussions that we had into depth and talked about how Bell Gardens fees are so old fashioned and they haven't been updated for some time and we are losing out on that revenue. However, I do feel that the residents do need access to affordable housing. And I feel that incurring the cost of this pandemic with the casino closed and us not having enough revenue coming in, I don't feel that this is the right time to incur a $50,000 cost to our residents. I do see the revenue that will potentially come in. It's just that since the casino has been closed and it wasn't allocated for it wasn't budgeted. I think that we should look at this when, the nation's economic crisis is either close to over or at least when our casino comes back, to be fully operating. So I would want to motion to table this until into the future. That would be my motion.
Gus, I know you mentioned we're bringing this item to council at the moment because time is of the essence. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Well, what's happening, once this pandemic settles down, we feel that the projects that were in motion are going to start up again. And if you have a very large project coming in with potential a good amount of that are going to be presented, once that project comes in and is submitted, then you will no longer have an ability to collect those impact fees from that project. And not to say that you won't be able to do it for future projects, of course, but if you look at the last 20 years and what's been lost in development impact fees, it's quite significant.
I have a question, Gus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So if we do this fee and we implement these fees, how long do you estimate that it will take us to recover those $50,000? I know that it's just an estimate, but just a ballpark figure will be great.
Though the $50,000, when you look at the overall, one project could cover that. And again, the impact fees go towards specific impacts. They don't go into the general fund. So what you're going to be spending does come out of the general fund. So I should be clear on that. So that money is not going to go back into the general fund. It'll go into a separate account just to take care of those impacts.
Thank you.
Just a proposition for my colleagues tonight, we can go ahead and give direction for an RFP to go out. And it would have to come back to us for us to actually approve the job to be done. And the 50,000 from what I'm obtaining from the city manager, it's an estimate. It could be lower, it could be higher, but we won't know until we put this RFP out. So for time purposes, if we go ahead and give direction for this RFP to go out, and then we bring it back to council to see if we approve the cost at that point, and maybe we can take some time to learn about it in the meantime. So I would move to give direction for an RFP to go out. So I think there's two motions on the floor at the moment.
Correct, Mayor. There was a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Flores to table the item. So we should consider that one first and then proceed to the next one.
Yes. So unless there's any more motions, we'll go with Mayor Pro Tem's motion first to table the item. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, we're seconding the motion to table the item, and I'll take it to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And no for myself, so the motion doesn't carry. Moving on to the second motion to give direction to issue just an RFP so we can receive some proposals. May I have a second?
I will second that.
Second by Councilmember Barcena, and then I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Councilmember, well, at that point, that motion dies. So, City Attorney?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. So because there were 2 votes for and 2 votes against, the item dies basically.
I have a question here. The motion, Ms. Flores' motion, was that to table to the next meeting or indefinitely?
Indefinitely.
It was till the casino opens up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for this presentation.
My pleasure.
City Manager, moving on to the next item.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. This item is a discussion and seeking some direction from the council regarding the agreement between the city and the Chamber of Commerce. We've got a couple options here that are listed in the staff report, including our current agreement with the Chamber technically ended on June 30th, about 6 weeks ago. Option 1 would be to extend the agreement for a year, which is what has been done in the past. Otherwise, option 2 is to amend the agreement to cover through the end of this quarter, through September 30th, and then end the agreement or bring it back at that time. And then the third option that's just always there, if there's something other that lines up with the council's pleasure, we'd be happy to hear that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gus if he wants to give a preamble before Mike does his presentation. Thanks, Gus and Mike.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, we have been working with Mike Salazar from the Chamber of Commerce for last year. And I'll tell you, I take great pleasure in working with Mike. He has a lot of initiative, a lot of great ideas. He's been very helpful with staff. And I know what's happened because of the pandemic, it's been very difficult to carry out the events that had otherwise already been planned. One of them, as we were working on the job fair, when all of a sudden this whole thing happened. So that's why we came to you. We understand that there is a revenue issue, revenue concern, and the council has always given $30,000 to the chamber to help them with their activities, to put all these things together. And there's been that long-standing partnership that we've had with them. And of course, from staff's point of view, we would love to continue that. But we understand the situation, so we're bringing to you the three options. One of them is to approve the agreement for another year for the $30,000. Second option is just to approve for one more quarter, ending on September 30th. And the third would be to give us direction on whether you'd like to do something different with the agreement. And with that, I'd like to have Mr. Mike Salazar give you a presentation as to what the chamber has been up to. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Can you guys hear me good? Yes, no, maybe? Yes?
Sorry, Mike, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Do we have the ability to put our presentation up on the board?
Yes, give us 1 second.
All right, thank you. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So as Gus mentioned, we had a lot of challenges ever since this terrible virus has impacted a lot of our businesses here in the city and around the world. It's very difficult for us to do networking events, even though we've had, several since the pandemic has started. The other thing we want to do is be able to limit the city and the chamber from, liability. Because if somebody gets sick during our events, obviously we're responsible for something like that. The other thing too is like health concerns. Like I'm the only employee here at the Chamber of Commerce. If I get sick and God forbid something worse happens, like then what happens? What is the backup to be able to move forward with all the great things that we're doing in our community? And then the revenue from future events. I know one of our biggest events that we've had throughout the year is our State of the City address. That one you have all the major players here in the city that they come and want to see what the direction of the business community and the direction of the city of Bell Gardens is. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are we currently doing now? Well, we ever since this pandemic has happened, we normally used to meet every week at City Hall. Now, due to the ability of the virus spreading, now it's forced us to be doing this stuff online. We've met every week since this pandemic has hit. The only exception is, I believe it was July 1st, and that was a day that we were working on another project in another city. But other than that, we've remained consistent in bringing these meetings, these resources to our business community. We also are one of the ones that have been distributing all the vital materials, all the PPP information, all the IDL loan information, and other resources to the business owners that need it. The other thing too is like there is a time where some of our members can't necessarily do everything virtually, so we scheduled meetings to meet at the office or their place of business from time to time to be able to conduct business and get these businesses going. The other thing that we've done is we've always worked very closely with the Rio Hondo Vernon Rotary Club, which I'm a member of and will be the president the following year, to be able to provide and give back to some of our community. I know in the past year we had a toy giveaway where we gave 125 care packages for some of our local students here at Cesar Chavez Elementary. And then we've given scholarships to some of the students that have volunteered their time here at the Chamber of Commerce. Some of them have special needs, and I went to our board to be able to allocate some of this money, which was about $2,000, to some of our Bell Garden students that have been able to help us help the chamber build and grow their business. The other thing that's vital is we have businesses that ship stuff out of the country, which is certificates of origin. I have one customer that comes once a week that does maybe anywhere from 15 to 20 of them. It's a vital part of their business to be able to do some of the things that they're able to do. And then recently we had a grand opening at the Tamales Elena y Ontejitos. And that was a very successful event. We partnered up with them to be able to bring some of our people. I know city staff was able to come over there, and we had a great event. A lot of our chamber members that weren't able to make it were able to come and take some stuff to go. And I know city staff and I know some of the other elected officials have come to support that restaurant there, because it was a very big thing to be able to do it. And it shows that even during this pandemic, these businesses can grow and thrive and become very successful in this challenging environment. We have the next slide, please. And here's some of the students that have been working with me for the past, I would say, about 3 years. So they've been helping, putting together, one of their projects they've been doing is when we donate books, they help stamp and show that it was coming from the Rio Hondo Vernon Rotary Club. They've also helped us when we had to move from the Perry address to the new location at the Bell Gardens High School. They've been a big help and instrumental. We were able to move everything from that office within 2 hours, and everything was set up. And I couldn't have done it without their help. So that was some of the things that they've been able to help me, not only necessarily do all the little tedious stuff, but those things allowed me to be able to work on many other different projects here. So here's some pictures of that. Can we have the next slide, please? And then what we're working on now. So like I mentioned, we were one of the first ones to actually do live events. We did our grand opening. We took all the proper precautions, make sure everything was sanitized, make sure everybody had their face masks on. Now, I know you're actually doing an actual physical state of the city address will be very challenging. But one of the concepts I was thinking of doing is doing something virtual. Now, what I'm talking about is probably something like a pre-recorded show, probably like 30 to 42 minutes. And what that allows us to do is to work with the city to be able to honor all these people that have been, those unsung heroes during this pandemic. Usually we have the Susan Smith Business of the Year. We have candidates on that. So if we're able to, move forward with this is an opportunity to work with city staff and the city council to recognize these people that have been, helping us during these challenging times. Once it's premiered, we could premiere it on like Facebook Live or other platforms such as the one we're on right now. This will give us an opportunity to kind of do something live streamed and have like the mayor or the council interact with our community members and our stakeholders here in the city. Organizing other resources for other businesses. I know that there's more loan programs that are going to be coming out. I know that there's a lot more resources that are coming down the way. And once the government decides to, take some action and make some moves for some of our people and our businesses, a lot of things are different. A lot of things are going to be changed, and we are going to be instrumental in getting that information to our stakeholders. The next thing we're working on is revamping our website. We have a new age business directory. This is one where we could work with some of the restaurants that have either DoorDash or Uber Eats. So if somebody wanted to go onto our directory and they wanted to, directly order from there, we have the ability to have them order through this listing software and be able to pay the merchant directly. And not only do we list every single business license that's listed here in the city of Bell Gardens, it has a search engine, it has many great things. We're in the process of being able to get a updated list so we can be able to populate these new directories. The other thing that we're working on doing is putting on some job postings. I know we're working with a staffing company that's going to be offering positions. I know one of our board members has a staffing agency, so we want to be able to put those jobs out there to help people get back to work. That's another similar technology where we're going to be able to, help, get our people back to work. If we have the next slide, please. So the other things that we're doing to adapt to changes, obviously we're not in the office right now. We're able to work from home and be very effective. I went ahead and converted our landline to now we have a new cell phone. So if anybody needs to contact us, we have the ability to, not only take messages, but actually, speak to our people in real time. If they leave us a message, I could text them back and be able to get to them in, real time as much as possible. If it's something urgent and important, which I've had instances like that, we're able to, respond, as quick as possible. And like I said, this technology that we've been able to do and in upgrading our internet speed, this allows us to be able to work from home remotely and still be very effective, if not even more than before, because now the business owner doesn't have to necessarily leave their business. We could be able to have a meeting and be just as effective here. So if we go on to the next slide, I believe that one is questions. So if there's any questions from the council at this point, I'd love to be able to get your feedback on this. Any changes that you would like to see, I'm all ears.
Council, the floor is open for question, comments.
Hey, Mike, I just wanted
Yes, I do have a question. Mayor Pro Tem, why don't you go ahead? I'll let you go first because I think you were already doing that anyway. So I'll go after you.
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. I know that we've worked, I've seen you work in many different grand openings for different businesses, and and in cities like this, and when someone works really hard to start their own business, I understand the importance of getting their name out there, connecting them to people who can possibly help them generate more revenue, and maybe just create partnership with other people here in the city. So I want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I know that you also helped us a lot with the Miss Bell Gardens event, and you assisted the girls to go asking for donations. It was the first time they had ever asked for anything. So I thank you for your guidance in that. And I can say that I'm very, overall happy, and I'm grateful for everything you've done here in the city.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes, Mike, I just wanted to ask if there's an online calendar that we can look at that has any of the upcoming things that you've scheduled and also including past events.
On our homepage, which is bellgardenschamber.biz, that has our Facebook feed on there. So anything that comes up right away is going to be posted on that feed, and anybody can go from there to check out our calendar of events when it comes to the Facebook calendar. That's basically where we keep a lot of that stuff. I can easily add another one of those calendars on our website. The thing is, we're working on putting and perfecting that directory, because that directory is going to be the key to driving a lot of traffic there. Once we have all that there, then that'll open a lot more doors for us to be able to help many more people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your presentation. I do want to thank you for all the help you've given us during this pandemic. I know you helped me shoot out a couple of documents, especially to the business community. So I just want to thank you for all that work and effort. And as for my council, there is 3 recommendations that go along with this item. The first is to approve a year contract. The second is to go through the September 30th deadline. And then the third one is if we modify, maybe come something in between. So at this point, if anybody would like to make a motion or a second, it is welcome. A motion, it is welcome.
I'd like to make a motion to continue till September 30th for the time being.
I'd like to make a motion to extend it for a 1-year contract.
Okay, and I'd like to make a third motion to come to a compromise between the two and extend it till December, which would incur a $15,000 cost for the city, but just halfway so that we can evaluate in December and see how we're doing economically. So there's 3 motions, and I'll go ahead and take them in order. First, starting with Councilmember Aceituno's motion to extend the agreement until September 30th. So it's the second option. May I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Barcena, and I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno.
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
And no for myself as well, so that motion dies on the floor. We have another motion on the table, which is Mayor Pro Tem's motion to extend it for a full year contract. And that is incurring the $30,000 cost. So may I have a second for that? Hearing no second, that motion dies on the floor. And then as for the third motion, I would like to extend the agreement until December, which would be the halfway mark, correct, Mike? And for us to bring it back to council at that point, may I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Flores. We'll take that to a vote. Councilmember Aceituno.
No.
Councilmember Barcena.
No.
Okay, the motion dies on the floor. Rick?
Mayor, members of the City Council, unless there are other motions, this item also dies. In order to approve a contract, you would need 3 affirmative votes.
May I make a motion, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please go ahead, Councilmember Barcena.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item to the next meeting and have the Chamber of Commerce tell us what they'll be able to accomplish with that $15,000 extension. That way we can have some expectations of how these funds are going to be utilized.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion, Councilmember Barcena, and the motion, again, to clarify, is to table the item to the next council meeting, coming back with a thorough presentation detailing what would happen from here till December in terms of work and what can be accomplished with the $15,000 allocated if we were to allocate. And I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well. That motion carries. Thank you so much.
And Mayor, for point of information from Gus Romo, I'd
Yes.
ask Rick, does this go on a month-to-month then at this point?
Gus, call me offline. I'll have to look at the agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, next item?
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. This next item is to come back to the council with the $400,000 of community benefit funds that were allocated through the budget process about 6 weeks ago. So $400,000 of general funds monies were reallocated for community benefit projects. This is somewhat of a part 2 to the similar projects that were approved using CDBG COVID monies. So in the last 6 weeks, staff has gone through to look to identify areas of community benefit that maybe weren't already touched by the COVID CDBG money to ensure that this money was spread around equally. And so there have been some additional programs that have been identified. I'll turn it over to our Recreation Community Services Director, Rosanna Danto, to go through some of the detail of these program recommendations to utilize these funds. I would say just in summary, these funds identify about $239,000 worth of programs, which leaves about $161,000 that staff is still working on coming up with additional program recommendations that we would bring back to the council. But this would cover $239,000 of the $400,000. Thanks, Roseanne.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The report before you identifies some of the programs and allocations of what we're recommending. The first one is what we're calling the Bell Gardens Scholars Fund. It's to appropriate $75,000 and provide one-time allocations of $500 per student who would attend either community college, a university, trade, vocational, school, and it's regardless of their immigration status. So applications would be received at the Community Family Service Center or online. There's no age limit. All we're asking is that the individual is a resident, can show proof of registration at the educational institution, and it'll be offered via a lottery or a raffle. So that's program number one. Program number two is in recognizing that Montebello Unified is going to distant learning. Information that I received from staff in regards to the Wi-Fi services for residents is only about 40% of residents in Bell Gardens have access to Wi-Fi services. And so what we're proposing is to create homework learning centers where children can come to our centers, take an online lesson if they have to, receive assistance from staff for tutoring or for just learning assistance, but it would provide free Wi-Fi services at Ford Park, which would include the sports center and the golf course, the Veterans Park, which would include both facilities, the old senior center, as well as the Ross Hall area. The Neighborhood Youth Center would also have a learning center there. And in talking to our IT department, we could control the timing of when Wi-Fi services are be available. So it wouldn't be like 24-hour service, but the hours that staff is at the facility, we can provide the Wi-Fi service, and that would help any residents, any students, whether it's elementary, college students, in or near those areas, would be able to access free Wi-Fi services. I also put some money in the budget to assist with recreation leaders. We're proposing to bring on some college students that are local residents to assist in the homework and the learning centers. The fourth program is the emergency food program. And what we're proposing there is to develop the partnership between Crescent Food Bank to provide a monthly food distribution to 500 families. We would pre-register the families. That would guarantee that they're all Bell Gardens residents. And then in November and December, we would have 2 large food distributions and allow us to concentrate on other types of gifts and needs for the community. And the fifth is just to help out with some of the devices for the Learning Center. Approximately 3 or 4 weeks ago, we received a donation from Supervisor Solis for 50 tablets to be used in the learning centers. And so we feel that we're going to need some additional devices to help out with that, and some other educational materials in relation to the homework and learning centers. And the remaining funds we're looking at allocating to enhance those programs, but we'll come back probably in about a month or two after we move on with these programs, if approved tonight. That's all I have. Thank you.
Questions or comments by the council?
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
In regards to the Wi-Fi accessibility, will certain sites be controlled to make sure that kids don't get onto the wrong sites?
Yes, there are controls to allow for that. There'll definitely be controls. That was one of the items that we discussed when we met with our IT personnel. one, we wanted to limit the hours. Two, where what sites could be accessed, and actually who can access it, because it's about also giving out a specific password to access those services from the Learning Center.
This is Councilmember Marco Barcena. I have a question here. For the scholarship program, which I think is a great idea, I wanted to ask if there's any way to convert the process into a competitive process, which will be open to all students, regardless of their immigration status or legal status, but that would allow students that have better grades or are making larger efforts in school to have an advantage at receiving these funds, rather than just have it be a randomized lottery process. Would that be feasible?
We could definitely come up with criteria for that. One of the thoughts that when we were discussing it with staff is that sometimes your B average student, maybe even your C+ average student, they're usually not eligible for those academic scholarships, but they're there working just as hard. And so sometimes they haven't received that leg up. But we can definitely consider it in making some criteria, making it eligible for that. We could do anything you'd like as in regards to how we distribute the money. We were kind of looking at things as trying to just be fair to anybody that applied and showed the effort and demonstrated that they were registered at a community college, a university, or a vocational trade school.
To add to Councilmember Barcena's comment, and also incorporating your suggestion, Roseanne, I think if we add some certain thresholds or categories, that would facilitate the process to make it somewhat competitive, but also to offer opportunity for the students that are going to school, but they're having some troubles, because we all know that it's not a straight learning curve. There can be a lot of roadblocks along the way. But it means a lot that they're already enrolled in college and that they're going through, but we also want to make sure that they are staying the path. So maybe we add a GPA minimum that would be like a C average. I think I'd be comfortable with that. But I think we can bring that item or those specifics back to council, correct, to be able to delineate how we're going to be affording the scholarships, Mike?
Yes, Mayor Cortez.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And then with regards to the other items, I really love the idea of a learning center long-term that would incorporate tutoring. Once we go back to normal, it's something that our community needs, just so that we can continue on our mission of supporting our youth and our young students, and also promoting higher education. But we need to be able to support them as well, not just ask for them to reach for the stars. We need to help them get there. So I really love that. I did conduct an online poll, very minimal amount of votes. It's clearly not a reflection of the community, but based on the poll that I conducted, food is a #1 priority at the moment. So I do love that you included that here. I do want to prioritize food, at least for now, including these other things that are going to come into play. But I really want to have more attention to the emergency food program and also food drives. We've already had 2 food drives in the city, and Roseanne, you've done an amazing job at providing meals for our children. But we do need to continue on that effort because our families are struggling, and that's what I want to see with this. But I love all these different options in terms of how to distribute the monies. I don't see any problem with any of them, but just let's prioritize food.
Roseanne, I think you did a phenomenal job putting these programs together. However, I do agree with Mayor Cortez that we should bring it back so that we can detailedly look at the programs and how we can better adjust them. I do like the scholarship fund. I do think that we should be lenient and give an opportunity to our at-risk students here in the city. I know, like you said, there's no age limit, so that's great. So for someone who's 30, who's barely going back to school, or someone who's 19 going back, to school, and I don't really like too much the whole. I think we should have a GPA. Perhaps let's develop the criteria in a way that it's accessible for those who, if you were to have a special need like autism, you might not be doing so great in all of your classes, but that shouldn't reflect the type of effort that you're doing nonetheless. So I think that we should really look into that. So I think that program number one is ideal. The learning centers is phenomenal. There is a huge digital divide. As like you mentioned, 40% of the residents here in Bell Gardens don't have access to a reliable Wi-Fi. And since school's been out, not only are we dealing with the digital divide and the racial outreach and a lot of isolation, but we really do need to provide all of these services so that they can better be prepared for going back to school. So I think that this is great as well. I'm just concerned about the limited, practicing social distancing. Do we know like the accommodations we're going to be able to make and how many students are going to be able to participate in this? Do you have a rough estimate and when this will be available?
So, yes, Mayor Pro Tem. So, for example, what we're considering or proposing for the Neighborhood Youth Center is to purchase a 20 by 40 outdoor tent where we'll be able to put tables. And what we'll do is schedule the children in so that, we have them correctly social distanced apart. So you might have just 2 children at each end of the table, one at each end. So we're taking all of those into consideration, but the tent would remain in place. It's in close enough proximity to access Wi-Fi. Therefore, we can provide the service all day. So there might be a child that comes over at 9 or 10 o'clock and will stay there until maybe 11. And then the next group of children. So we're thinking we can accommodate about 50 children per 2-hour cycle.
And that's just at the Ross Hall, or you mean in general with everybody?
No, I gave the youth center as an example, and then we have Ross Hall, which again there'll be another setup in Ross Hall. Same thing at Ford Park, where we'll have another setup for the children that are in that area of the city. So we're looking at 3 sites and being able to accommodate children like every 2 or 3 hours on a cycle, and they would need to register. That way we could make sure that we had adequate staffing, adequate space for them. But because the Wi-Fi is available, you might have some high school students who might be able just to sit outside, and we could put a couple of tables and chairs in the perimeter, but they're just there to access Wi-Fi and are doing homework. So there's going to be a little bit of flexibility, for lack of a better word, that we're going to be asking, but the younger children inside, the older children outside, and it'll be an evolving program, because as time goes on, we'll get better at it. But definitely a tent at the Neighborhood Youth Center on the outside, so that way we can accommodate more children.
I have to say that the Neighborhood Youth Center has been a very it needs a little attention, right? So I think this is going to be not only an innovative way to make it look phenomenal with this tent, but also provide assistance. So I want to commend you for, being so innovative with your ideas and putting Promethean efforts like this forward. And I have to say that I think we just have to look into the small little details, but overall, it sounds like a very well put together program. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
I just want to talk about the $161,000 that are remaining. I know that staff is going to be coming back with their own ideas, but I wanted to just throw something out there for your consideration. Maybe that can serve as a starting point for a position in the Recreation and Community Services Department that's sort of a community liaison that can be on the lookout for other resources from either LA County or the state or resources that sometimes our residents are not aware of, someone that can be constantly signing people up and making sure that they're aware of the resources that are out there that are not necessarily offered by our city. And this position could be funded by that amount of money there. That's more than enough to fund a position like that. But also, if it could be one of our recreation staff that has a background in social services, I know that there's a lot of our employees that have degrees that are working in the recreation and community services. And I think it would be great if they were able to promote those resources that exist outside of the city and have measurable results that can be brought back to the council to show that we're really promoting all these services that already exist in the community. I know that there are currently 2 other services that we kind of put on hold because we realized that they sort of overlapped with existing resources that the county offers. So that's an example of some of the opportunities that maybe our residents are not aware of, but with a position like that, maybe we can promote that. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there and see if it's something that maybe we can look into.
Roseanne, I have a question. I know you mentioned the holidays, and would that fall under the 161, or is that in one of these other categories?
No, the holiday food program is part of the 24,000. So we're actually doubling the resources for those 2 months.
Okay, and would we be able to extend it to more than 500 families at that point, or it would just be the 500?
No, for that one, we're talking about 1,000 families per for November and December.
Awesome. And then I do want to also add to the menu, maybe under the 161, if we do have some wiggle room. I know the holidays are going to be especially tough this year. They always are in Bell Gardens and in other communities similar to ours. So we always put an effort to have our own independent toy drives, food drives, turkey drives, etc. But we realize that our funding sources might be a little bit tight this year. Our donors might not be as generous for obvious reasons. So I was wondering if also we can look into having a city-sponsored event where we have toy drives or turkey drive just to help out our families during the holidays, because they're going to be tough this year with the loss of family members and the loss of income. So I do want to add that on there just as we're brainstorming for the other 161.
Yes, we can do that. And again, there is a little bit of a cushion on the 24,000 that is in there if we need to expand the amounts for families. So we can go up to 750 families per month with this amount of money. So we're going to start with 500. If we find that the registration is necessary, we can go up to 750. And then again, we'll have a couple of months to decide if we need to put additional funding from the 161. So that is definitely something that we will take a look at.
Thank you. And I would also like to just offer support for Councilmember Barcena's suggestion. I think a community liaison might be something interesting to look into, and just seeing how we can expand a recreation department to better assist our families. Also considering now that we have our community services center that you established, Roseanne, and that way High Liz can take a little break as well, because I know he's been pulling a lot of the resources and doing a lot of the publications online, but that would also help to assist High Liz in the role that he's doing right now with the community.
Yes, most definitely. And I think at the August 24th, we'll be bringing back an agreement between the county and the city for consideration, as we are being designated as a site to provide additional rental assistance. So that'll bring additional funding into the community. And so we'll be bringing back some type of an agreement at the August 24th. So we are tapping into all of those LA County resources in addition to what we have with our CARES money to make it go further and to help additional families.
And so that, Roseanne, before we continue, you know, I have to say that within the Southeast, there's no gay center or youth-friendly gay center. So I'd like to see that if with the allocated funds, if available, we can start searching for something like that, in which maybe not be solely a gay center, but have services to accommodate that population. Any help for that community would be really helpful, because I know that there is nothing nearby. It's either in Long Beach or West Hollywood, or I mean, the nearest one I can think of is probably Long Beach, you know? So I think that maybe we should, you know, like, since you're, you know, very Promethean in your efforts, that we should maybe look into that as well. And, you know, let this opportunity pass us by. We have funds, and I want a portion of that to go in that direction.
Of course, we'll take a look at various options and bring them back to council for consideration. So not a problem. All very good ideas.
Thank you, Council. If there's no other questions, comments, concerns, I think the recommendation on the table on behalf of staff is to approve the current distribution of the items that were presented. We can do that maybe with the caveat of bringing back certain items in a more detailed fashion, such as the scholarship fund, so that council can, you know, offer their input and approval. But the recommendation for today is to approve those specific portions so that staff can move forward and complete the recommended projects. So I'll go ahead and move to approve that recommendation. I just want to see the scholarship fund come back.
I'll go ahead and second.
And then I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Flores?
Yes.
And then yes for myself as well. Thank you so much. City Manager, next item.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. This item's really an informational item that comes along with a presentation. It's really for informational purposes only. It's to let the council know the staff's intent to apply for a Clara Street Corridor Improvement Grant from I-710 Early Action Program funds. I believe we've also already received some funds from these I-710 Early Action for other areas. And this, with that, I will turn it over to Doug Banash, our city engineer.
There we go. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm here tonight to present you a proposed I-710 early action project for the Clara Street corridors. Just a little history. As part of the Caltrans I-710 widening between the City Route 60 Ocean Boulevard and Long Beach, the I-710 corridor was processed through an environmental impact report. From that, the environmental impact report was adopted for alternate 5C, and then we addressed the major traffic concerns. Through that process, Metro has allocated early action money for projects that can be constructed prior to the completion or even the start of the freeway work to help improve air quality, public health, improve traffic safety, modernize the freeway, and then also address local traffic issues. The city has obtained funding for the Garfield and Eastern improvements as part of this early action program, and we're going after another corridor, the Clara Street corridor, of that funding pot to help improve the Clara Street corridor from the east city limits to, which is Clara and Eastern, all the way over to Florence and Scout, which is Scout and Clara, the extension there. So what we're proposing to do on Clara Street is basically we have left turn pockets and through lanes, and a combination of through and right turn lanes on the Clara Street corridor. What I'm proposing to do is to skip forward, is to install dedicated left turn lanes and dedicated right turn lanes on Clara Street, and aligning the intersection accordingly. So to increase capacity from that. This will be include the realigning of the curb and gutters and sidewalks and catch basins along Clara Street in order to accommodate the lane reconfiguration. That is the ultimate. Now what this is interesting about this project is that when this city completed its systematic safety intersection analysis, otherwise known as SARP, it gave us a classification of all the intersections in the city of high traffic areas and traffic counts. If I back up to this one, the SARP data gave us we had over 39 collisions at the intersection regarding either right-of-way, left turn violations, and so forth. So the goal of our improvements is to reduce these number of collisions at this intersection. This would be one of the primary goals for the project at intersection. Moving on to the next intersection, which would be Habanera and Clara Street. Basically, this intersection operates as a split phase where the north-south direction goes as one movement. Everything stops, then the eastbound goes, then that stops, then the westbound goes, then goes back to the north and south. Our goal for this project is to realign it to allow the left turn movements along with right lane improvements and through movements to work as a standard intersection where north-south movements will operate and then go through, then east-west movements would operate. Again, backing up, we had enough collision. I guess I don't have one, but okay. But there's a collision data diagram. Oh, there it is. It's on the aerial photograph. That's why it threw me off. Sorry. We had a total of 9 collisions, anywhere from rear ends to head-ons, and so safety improvements, and then with the left turn phasing and so forth, to help mitigate those traffic accidents. We are not proposing to change any of the stop signs that occur on the Clara corridor, so those will remain in effect. Our next major project would be the Clara and Garfield intersection. This one is an acute. Garfield, Clara runs east and west, and Garfield runs on a northeast and southwest direction, where we have sharper corners at the northeast corner and the southwest corners. Currently, we already have a right turn lane on the southwest corner. This project creates the right turn pocket on the northwest corner with a minor right-of-way take of the existing property owner there. This has been currently under preliminary design through other project funding, but we figured we would go after the I-710 funding to get the construction funding for this. Moving down the corridor, we come to Florence and Scout. Here, our goal is with this project is to provide construction funding for the matching funds for an HSIP grant application that we're going after also. This will provide dedicated left turn phasing in the north and south direction on Scout, which is completion of the Clara corridor. And with that, our goal is to take this to the I-710 Technical Advisory Committee meeting here, either August, probably September, October. And if we get approval for funding, we'll probably have a funding agreement a year from now, where we can start the design in a year from now and move through construction. All using Metro money for this work. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions on behalf of council? Hearing none, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 10, which is the approval of resolution allowing for the submission of the Home Key Program grant application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development. And this is a city manager report, so give us 1 minute. And just for reference, council, while we're waiting, the item is in your email. So go ahead and pull up your email, please.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez, members of the council. So this item, we previously discussed trying to get this on the agenda. So we're moving quick. We've identified funding. It's a quick turnaround. What we're doing here is applying for $2 million of funding that would be used to buy down units, to reduce the cost of the units by as much as $200,000 for affordable housing. This would be using state grant funding. The application is due this week, and we would be trying to turn those funds around before the end of this calendar year, which would allow us to buy down approximately 10 units. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Gus Romo, our Community Development Director, to fill in any blanks and also to answer any questions council may have.
Oh, thank you, Mr. City Manager. The reason this is coming to you at this point, as Mike was saying, we've identified an opportunity to try to subsidize some affordable housing units. Initially, we thought this project might not have that segment into it. But when we look further into it, we found out that it actually does have the ability to fund existing units under construction, as well as future units that have been entitled and are pending. And the reason we are only identifying $2 million is because there's three different tiers of grants. Tier 1 is for projects that are under construction that we can actually get funded before the end of the year, because the monies have to be expended, like Mike was saying, before the end of the year. And then there's other tiers, tier 2 and 3, that allow the funds to be extended all the way up till end of June of 2021. And those could be for projects that we have entitled and that will be starting construction maybe later on next year. So for now, we are looking at 2 projects that are just about finished, and we'd like to be able to approach the developers and be able to offer them these grants, if we do get them, of course, to be able to provide more affordable housing. So that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Gus. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, how much money would this subsidize, this grant, per unit or per entire development? What is
It would be per unit. You know, as our city manager is indicating, we were looking at about $200,000 per unit. So that could be similar to the down payment assistance grant that the Cal Home is giving us, or it could be in combination with that too. So we really think this is the perfect time to do this, because we have these projects under construction, and rather than just having a market rate, we can make them available to people that might be on the lower to moderate income spectrum.
There's I'm reading it just now. So that's a portion of it. Depending on the funding award, the successful applicant must close escrow by the expenditure deadline. Therefore, they have to qualify for the purchase of the home without the subsidy first.
The developer is the one that has to accept the funds. And so by the developer accepting the funds, that means it's been expended. It doesn't necessarily have to close escrow and be in the applicant's hands. In other words, whoever is purchasing that. It just has to be at a point where the developer can say, yes, I'm going to go forward with the affordable housing unit. I'm going to offer it up, and now I've got the monies to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the council? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and move to make a finding that there is a need for immediate action, that the matter to the city's attention after posting of the agenda. That was the first one, correct, Mike? Give me 1 second. Mike, for the staff recommendations, we have 3 listed. Was the first one the first that we just to add that into the agenda list, we will be approving item 2 and 3, correct?
That's my understanding, Mayor Cortez. Rick, can you also just clarify on that? The first item was to get the item heard. I don't believe it has to be voted on, that recommended action item. The first action item.
Right, at the beginning of adding this item to the agenda, the things that we needed to state for the record were a number of findings which we've met. One was that this item came to the attention of the city after the agenda was posted, and that there is a need to take immediate action. And I believe that the need to take immediate action was articulated by both the city manager and by our community development director. So those findings have already been met.
Thank you, City Attorney. So then my motion is to adopt the attached resolution approving submittal of an applicant for Home Key Program grant from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and also to take such additional related action that may be desirable. So may I have a second?
I'll go ahead.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem seconds, and I'll take this to a roll call. Councilmember Aceituno.
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
And yes for myself as well. So the motion carries, and with that, we end all of our discussion items. Moving on to public participation on non-agenda items, City Clerk.
Yes, we have 3 speakers that have requested to be called in. So I'll start with the first one. First one's name is Mel Alleman.
Hello?
Hi, is this Mr. Alleman?
Yes.
This is Jane Halstead, City Clerk for the City of Bell Gardens. I'm calling you so you can state your comments before the council. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead and start, sir, and state your name.
All right, thank you. My name is Mel Alaman, and good evening to everybody. I have a few items that I would like to have a personal comment on. I just want to be clear that all of my comments come from the perspective of modernizing the city so that we can be competitive with other dream resident destinations in the area. I and other homeowners in the city here rely heavily on the city council to make difficult decisions for the betterment of the city. So thank you all. The first item, I just wanted to give kudos to the Parks and Recs. They've been doing an awesome job lately. I've witnessed some of the few distribution activities that they've been engaging in, and it's very good for our children during these times of uncertainty to have a level of normalcy to see their coaches and other park staff, on the daily doing those types of, engaging in those types of positive activities. So thank you very much. The second thing, I want to talk about these temporary tents. There has been some discussion on these in order for businesses to provide, dining services and things in parking lots, since you're not able to accept customers indoors right now. It's very clear when you walk the city, and if I could just pause it for a second, actually, I will always invite the city council members, especially if you don't live in a city, and I think most of you don't, to take a walk on the weekends when the city really comes alive, when there isn't a whole lot of enforcement and folks know it. Take a walk and just get to know the city that you're representing. When you walk the city, like I do, you'll notice all of the businesses that are following all of the requirements for tents, and then the ones that are not, that are making decisions on the spot and walking through the city. A lot of parking lots look like swap meets this weekend of folks establishing shop. And so there has to be some sort of enforcement so that folks follow that. I take a lot of pride in the city, and I'm a little let down to know that people will, exit our freeway and drive through Florence and see these types of things, and it makes us really look run down. So if there could be some discussion of that, I would really appreciate it. And lastly, there's been a lot of discussion on the parking situation for Bell Gardens. I know that We spend a considerable amount of money, something like 40,000, for surveys and things. Let me offer some free advisements. Throughout the city, specifically, I'll just talk about my street. I witness it specifically on weekends where folks will park on my street and then Uber back to Bell or Maywood or wherever they live because it's cheaper for them to do that than to pay for a permit in their city to park. I personally find that unacceptable as a homeowner. It limits my and my guests' options of whatever to park. Other cities near us have taken the brave move to move with either identifying paint strips on the floor so folks know the parameters of where they can park or permits and things like that, and I invite our city to do the same.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
The next speaker is Jennifer Rodriguez.
No stream. No stream. That's good. Moment they change
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 562.
Okay, and the next speaker is Juan Marin, and he's going to be participating via WebEx.
Hello?
Yes, go
Good
ahead.
evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Hello.
Go ahead and state your comments before the council.
For sure. Good evening. My name is Juan Daniel Marin, a small business owner residing in Bell Gardens. I firstly seek to show support for the continuation of funds to the Chamber of Commerce of Bell Gardens. I am speaking today to request the Honorable City Council members to act for the salvation of small local businesses, such as my own, due to the current repayment period of only 3 months enforced by the recently passed Urgency Ordinance number 908U, which produces an impossibly steep amount due of back rent along with regular monthly rent. I am faced with the imminent loss of my businesses in November and thereby home. In order to save Bell Gardens and its small business residents like myself from facing an economic and eviction crisis, I plead the City Council to do so by enacting and implementing an addendum which I myself have sent to each council member by email and that I authored myself and is supported by the ECR Communities for Environmental Justice. Addendum number 1 for Urgency Ordinance number 908U for the modification of the 3-period repayment period into 12 months, which is the same period provided by the Los Angeles County moratorium. The current stance of the City Council is clearly stated in the following excerpt found in Agenda Report Item 16. It should be noted that the city's moratorium is more favorable toward property owners and that the city ordinance requires payment of rent owed within the 3-month period following the expiration of the moratorium, while the county's ordinance allows for payment within a 12-month period. The current ordinance as is greatly disadvantages all small business owners based in Bell Gardens, as illegally overrides the protection granted by the county's more sensible and longer repayment period, and instead favors property owners by providing them a legal backing to easily dispose affected tenants out of their business locations following the expiration of the moratorium, as the 3-month repayment period imposes an impossibly steep amount due a month of back rent that must be paid on top of the rent that is due that month as well, in the middle of an increasingly precarious time in which many small businesses struggle economically, some even before the pandemic struck. Since the inability to endure and overcome the financial burden caused by the lack of proper time given to repay back rent and simultaneously recover required income to maintain operations would force many businesses to permanently shutter and close their doors, including my own. This in turn would lead to an economic decline and to the collapse of the economic growth of the city, since small business represent the economic backbone of the city, a city who has sworn under oath to serve and protect its residents above all. The City Council should be protecting the residents of Bell Gardens who are small business owners and appropriately back them up legally with the same term of their repayment period as the one provided by the County of Los Angeles in their own moratorium, since small businesses and their owners serve a vital role in the economy of the city. I kindly urge the City Council to revise the addendum request I have submitted into careful consideration and to act accordingly and approve the processing of its inaction in order to provide small businesses and their owners a more reasonable time span to repay back rent and thus provide us with a fighting chance to survive. My residential space resides in the same property as my commercial one and is under the same contract. So I will be evicted from my home as well as my businesses and be homeless if the repayment period is not transitioned into 12 months. So it's a dire need. I do not seek to not pay my rent. All I want is to be given the same reasonable time as the one given in the LA County moratorium to have time to pay my rent and for it to be a feasible and achievable amount. I personally spoke with Senator Inez Gonzalez's office to contact the city on my behalf.
Sir, you'll need to wrap it up.
Thank you for your
Your
comments.
time's up. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment, Mr. Marin. We have received your email, so we'll be reading it and revising it thoroughly. With that, I'll go ahead and close public participation, and now moving on to council member comments. Councilmember Aceituna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This time I just want to personally thank our finance director, Will Kahulahu, for the great years of service that he's given the residents of Bell Gardens. I'm saddened to see you leave our city. You definitely will be missed, and I wish you nothing but the best on your future endeavors.
Thank you, council member. I really appreciate the nice words.
And we're going to definitely miss your numbers.
I love those numbers.
Councilmember Barcena.
Hi, I want to say thank you to Will. I've been working here in the city for over 10 years, and the work that I've seen from Will has always been excellent. He's always exceeded the expectations of everyone, as far as I'm aware, including the Recreation and Community Services Department when I worked in the Recreation and Community Services Department. So I know that he's not going to struggle to find a new place. If anything, people are probably already fighting over Will. So Will, again, I want to thank you for everything that you did here in Bell Gardens. We're going to miss you, and I also wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. I appreciate the kind words.
Mayor
You're welcome.
Potem?
And then
I'm sorry.
I do have a little bit more to say here. Sorry about that. I just want to thank Alex Marin for sending the email earlier today. I did read it in regards to the moratorium, and I will be paying closer attention to that. I just wanted to mention that to Alex. And I do have a question that I more or less already know the answer to, but I want to put it out there for residents. There have been a couple of residents that have contacted me concerned about other neighbors of theirs that live nearby their houses, and somehow they've become aware that those neighbors have COVID-19, and they're asking me if there's anything that they can do because they're afraid. So I wanted to put this question out there for maybe some of the more knowledgeable staff, such as maybe the police chief, to see if there's any enforcement, because as far as I'm concerned, there's really nothing that we can do apart from just taking the precautions that we already know. But if there's anything else that you guys can suggest or any insight that you can provide for these families, I would appreciate to hear that.
Councilmember Barcena, this is Mike O'Kelly. I'm just we can get some information to you, and I think put some information out on social media. Just off the top of my head, and I'd look at the police chief and our community development director. There is a public health hotline that you can call if people are not adhering to the stay-at-home order. So if you have neighbors that have COVID, in and of itself, they have a right to quarantine in their own home and things of that nature. But if what you're hearing is that they're not following the stay-at-home orders and in some way violating and putting other people at risk, beyond just the fact that they're trying to quarantine themselves, that would definitely be a resource that's available. So I think we could talk with you offline to give you some more information, but we could also put something on social media, just a reminder of the, the public health compliance side of it. They're really more the experts at it, I think, than we are, but we definitely can help.
Thank you. That will be great to put something on social media, and that's exactly what I was expecting. There will be a number to call if someone is violating the mandates, but if you simply find out that some of your neighbors have COVID-19 and they're not really violating any mandates, there's really not much to do as far as I know, and that's sort of the message here. But I look forward to seeing those posts, and I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Councilmember, does that conclude your comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I want to thank caller Mr. Marine and Mr. Alaman. Thank you so much for your pride in our city and your passion. I can hear it from both of you that you're very passionate and care about our city very dearly. So thank you for that and for calling and giving us your time. I want to thank Roseanne. I think that you really outdid yourself here. So thank you so much for your programs that you put together. And I know that it's been, a lot of your staff putting this out there. So I'm really grateful for them. And I want to, acknowledge them. Our Parks and Recreation staff, they bring their hearts with them every day. They help the most dire residents, from seniors all the way to children, kids with special needs, and everybody in between. And I feel that they wear their heart on their sleeves, because I know that they do everything they can, even if it means bending the rules just a little, just to help our residents out. So I want to thank you guys for everything you guys have done from the beginning, and how you guys haven't lost that passion. You continue to come to work every day and help everybody regardless of everything. And you put your own family and your own lives at risk, for minimal compensation. But I think the compensation comes in the rewarding feeling of being able to help others. And there's no way to measure that. So to you guys, if you're listening, and Roseanne, if you can deliver that message, thank them, because I hear the stories and I couldn't be more proud of my Parks and Rec team. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I will pass that on. I do want to say I'm very proud of the team. It's a real cohesive group that's working very hard, and it's nice to be recognized. And I will pass that on, because the team is out there working, and I know that we're benefiting the community, and those accolades will help and in the motivation. So thank you.
Thank you. And for the residents who have been asking for COVID testing, I just want you guys to know that Hilda Solis just announced not so long ago that there's a new COVID testing location in the city of Huntington Park. You can call 211 and you can follow those steps, and they'll be able to set up an appointment. Or I'm going to give you guys the phone number. It's area code 323-238-3324, and you can start calling already and making appointments. Again, this is coming from Supervisor Hilda Solis' office, so I want to thank her and commend her for that. And with that, I want to go ahead and thank all of the staff who's been putting all this together. I know, Gus, we were kept you very busy. So thank you so much to everybody, and I hope that you guys come back next council meeting and help us tune in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. As far as my comments, first, Will, I know you're not leaving just yet. We still have you for a couple more weeks, but just piggybacking on their comments, I do want to express my appreciation for you. Even though I'm at City Hall, most of the time we don't cross paths with this whole social distancing. But when we came into council, you were one of the very first directors or even employees to email me and to welcome me into this city and into the work that was going to be done. And you've always been very honest, and you've helped us work with our budget. So I do appreciate you very much. I am very sad to see you go. But as Marco mentioned, I'm sure you're not going to have any trouble finding a new, or even if you found already a new position, I'm sure there's so many people that are going to fight for you. It's the next step up. You've dedicated, I believe, 10 years to our city. So immense gratitude to that. I will miss you, and we will miss you all together as a city, especially our city manager, but going through negotiations and budgeting. But thank you so much. I do appreciate you. I also want to extend my gratitude to some of our other departments. We had a very successful census caravan that went across 14 different cities, but I can't emphasize enough how proud I was when I came to Bell Gardens and when we brought these other 14 or 13 elected officials to the city of Bell Gardens. And we had a very nice display of our birthday celebration for them to see and to be able to witness. So with that, I do want to thank our Parks and Recs. Roseanne, again, you outdo yourself every single time, and our staff is amazing. And it was just amazing to see our Parks and Recs meet other Parks and Recs from other cities as we cross through Bell Gardens. I also want to thank our Bell Gardens Police Department for guiding us through the city and our caravan, and also helping us with our neighboring city of Maywood. Mayor Garza from the city of Bellflower extends his gratitude and says that BGPD rocks. And I agree. I also want to thank our senior management analyst. Hi, Liz. Without you, we couldn't do a lot of these census things. You've dedicated so much time and energy. I see you here Fridays, weekends, and very, very long days and nights. I often tell Hi, Liz, go home, and it's already 7, 8, 9 p.m. But he's dedicated to his work and he's behind the scenes a lot. But I do want to thank you for all your amazing work. Also, Public Works, we are amazing when it comes to graffiti. I do want to extend my gratitude for that, because as soon as graffiti goes up, it goes right back down. So it's not more than a couple of minutes that we see it on our walls, and that it fills me with pride, because if we go into other cities, not bashing on other cities, but it takes a couple of days to get that work done. But right here in Bell Gardens, it goes right back down. So please extend my appreciation to the department and to all of our amazing workers, because sometimes our public works isn't noticed, and they do a lot for us, and they're working continuously repairing our streets. Right now, we're doing a lot of improvements throughout the city. So thank you, Public Works. And with that, I just want to wish everyone a good night. Please be safe, adhere to the social distancing as much as possible. We're in month, I don't know, of quarantine anymore. Month 6, thank you, Roseanne. But we're going to get through this together if we all stick together and we do our very best to adhere to, it's an honor system. You know, it's not so much about enforcement. It's about all of us honoring those commitments. And I'm on speaker somewhere. Honoring those commitments to enforce the social distancing, to stay at home, to quarantine ourselves if we do become positive with COVID. And it's for the protection of ourselves, our families, and also our vulnerable neighbors. So just reminding the community, please, no gatherings, no parties. If you do walk in the park, you can't have picnics or any of those activities with members outside of your family. So please adhere to that. If you have any questions, you can always refer to the Department of Public Health. The order is there. They cleaned it up. It's a little bit more accessible and reader friendly, so that you can see for yourself what the regulations are. But if you do have any questions as to whether something is allowed or not, you can always message any of us and we'll be more than happy to guide you. With that said, I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 7:58 p.m.